In Kenya, people have started moving into a new housing development, which may sound like an everyday occurrence. But this time, the residents could be entering a world of opportunity. That's because the development is organised and financed entirely using microcredit, the theory that small loans can spur entrepreneurs and bring about change. The company behind it wants to offer some of the poorest people in one of Africa's worst slums a chance for a better life. But the project is not without its critics, as Peter Grester discovered.
Jane Injoiri's new house is her castle. This former prostitute turned seamstress is settling in with her 4 children in the town of Kapute outside Nairobi. It's a humble home by developed world standards, but a palace compared to the tin shack they used to live in. And Jane bought it with microcredit. She escaped prostitution with the help of a loan to buy her first sewing machine. Now she stitches together some 40 dresses a month to keep her kids clothed and fed, in school and under a decent roof.
All these things that you see in this house, it is out of that small sewing machine. It has serviced so many loans, including even to get money to save for this house.
But this story is as much about Kapute as it is about Jane. The town, and not just Jane's home, is built entirely on microcredit. 130 families now live out here. It'll eventually house 2,000. And the organisation behind it is Jamii Bora, Good Families in Swahili.
Our mission had been to try to rehabilitate those very, very poor members to come out of poverty and live a better life. And that is why we found it was not only credit would give them to live better lives, but also good housing.
Kapute is a noble experiment in social engineering, but neighbouring communities argue that there's no industry here and no jobs, and that more than 2 hours from Nairobi on a good day, too far to commute. It's an experiment that critics say simply can't work.
It's not self-sustaining. It's not going to be able to generate enough income from low-income earners to run it environmentally sound and economically sound. It's going to be a problem.
When she can, Jane returns to her old home deep in the Mathare Valley slum to sell dresses. She's got no regrets, but admits it's not easy making a living from so far away. And that's why this squalor is so difficult to leave.
In so many ways, Kapute is the complete antithesis of this place. In fact, it was intended that way. Mathare is disorganized, it's dirty, it's crowded, it's insecure. But there is still a reason why people keep coming here, and that's because they can make money.
Everywhere you look, there's some sort of business. Kapute won't clear the slum, but it might give some a chance of escape. Peter Grester, BBC News in Mathare Valley, Kenya.
For more on the promise and pitfalls of microfinance, I'm joined now by Neil McFarquhar, the UN correspondent for the New York Times, who wrote extensively about the issue in today's paper and joins us tonight from London. Neil, thank you very much for being with us.
Glad to be here.
So tell me, is microfinance lifting people out of poverty, as we just saw there in that report from Kenya, or is it being abused?
It's a bit of a tumultuous argument going on right now within the microfinance community itself, and I think there's 2 points there. One is that studies are showing that it's not quite the panacea it was sold at. It helps people alleviate some of the worst pitfalls of poverty, but not everyone is an entrepreneur waiting to be discovered. And 2, more and more sort of private financial institutions are moving into it because they find that they can make a profit. So it's kind of moved away from its charitable roots.
And Neil, is it 1 or 2 bad companies, or is it more systemic, do you think, the problem?
It's hard to gauge because conditions vary so much from country to country. And when you talk to analysts, they'll guess that it's anywhere from 1% of companies that are, being exploitative and charging these incredible interest rates to up to 10%. And so what they're trying to do is sort of set standards for it, but nobody can quite agree what the standards should be. Like Muhammad Yunus, who founded the Grameen Bank and won a Nobel Peace Prize for his, pioneering the field in Bangladesh, thinks that anything above 10 to 15% above the cost of the original money is too much. He says it's, it's back to loan sharking. But some people say that's unrealistic, that you just have to do it country by country because the costs are different from country to country.
So, Neil, does regulation seem to be the answer? Is that possible in this world?
Well, there's a group of people, I mean, you can't really regulate because every country's laws are different, but what they're trying to do is sort of get companies to be more transparent about what their costs are, how much money goes into overhead, how much goes into salaries, how much goes into reaching these poorest borrowers, and, you know, putting all that on websites so people can see what the cost basis is for every single microfinance organization. And in that way, they hope that people can sort of judge it individually as opposed to setting rules, because they're afraid, I mean, industry experts are afraid if you just say, well, this rate is too high, people will shy away from lending to the poorest borrowers, because that's where the costs are highest.
Microfinance, and Neil, do you think that microfinance is still a good tool for lifting people out of poverty, despite these drawbacks?
It's not going to lift everybody out of poverty, but as we saw in your piece, you know, it does alleviate some of the worst effects, and it does open up possibilities for some people. So it can work, yes.
Neil McFarquhar in London, thank you very much indeed for staying up to do our show.
Anytime.
We'll take you up on that.